Hi, friends. It's me, Enel. Welcome to my podcast. Now, there are some extremely important topics to discuss here today, but before that, let me tell you a little bit about this. So, as I mentioned in my update video, I've had this idea for a while where I have some podcasts just related to the Xeno series that covers a number of interesting topics. And I'd like to maybe do this with a couple others and have some different people on each week, whether they're a popular YouTuber, someone important in the community, or just someone relatively unknown that I think would be a good fit for a particular week. So the goal besides that is just to have a lighthearted environment that has some serious conversation with genuine opinions, but a lot of humor as well. We want to be entertaining. This week is just to try to gauge interest in this, to see how much people like it. So I picked my good friend Xander, who knows a lot about the games, to help me out this week, and Enel, who is one of the larger YouTubers for the franchise, who also made a lot of great gameplay videos about Xenoblade 2, who I know is great at talking. So hopefully we do a good job. Feel free to leave feedback in the comments and let me know if you enjoyed it. So why don't you guys introduce yourself?
All right, Xander, you're up. You can do it.
I play a lot of X, Xenoblade X, and that's it.
Nice.
That's it.
He's a one game kind of guy. I like that.
Well, I mean, if you include toppling from Xenoblade 1 as like playing the games, then I guess that too.
Oh yeah, no, honestly, it's at least as best as you can for a game like Xenoblade Chronicles 1. Yeah. Anyways, I am Mr. NN Lee, and I am a YouTuber since 2017, play mostly Switch games, and most recently, and probably most notably, Xenoblade Chronicles 2.
So,
Alrighty.
I guess people like hearing the story of how people got into the franchise. So I guess that's the first thing I would like to talk about. How did you guys get into the series, and like what's your experiences with the games that you have played so far?
Alright, Xander, you want me to go first?
Yeah.
I love that. Actually, for me, it was purely coincidental. Actually, for me, a lot of people they told me about the series back in 2017. This is back when I started the YouTube channel. I was a Breath of the Wild kind of person, and I've heard a lot of people really excited for this game. It's the kind of game where, like, obviously this had a very dedicated following. Even myself, I was a bit of a I was a bit of a supporter of the original Operation Rainfall for the first Xenoblade, and I was just really excited to see how this game would take off. And I decided that out of boredom and out of a willingness to see what new games I could play on Switch, this looked like a new killer app. So that was Xenoblade Chronicles 2 for me, and I've been kind of hooked on it ever since, playing it for the entire year span of 2017 to 2018. And since then, I've actually started to move on to other games of the series and just love those all the same too.
Right, and I think how I got into the series was pretty similar. I remember the Operation Rainfall, but I didn't really like know much about the series then because I never played like Gears or Saga before it came to America. But all
I
that
feel
stuff,
like that's a rarity too.
yeah, all that stuff like really got me like interested in the games. I usually like RPGs. There's not like many on the Wii. Maybe I'll buy this. So when the game like originally came, I don't remember when it originally came. I do remember like in 2013, 2014 is when I actually bought the game. It was a used copy for like $55 or something. But I was like, okay, I'll get this anyway. And I ended
Yeah,
up
it was
really,
impossible to find after a while. I
yeah,
remember.
and I really enjoyed it. Like it was like it was a different battle system than anything I'd ever seen before in my life, and I enjoyed that a lot. And I really like got hooked on the story, and I enjoyed that a lot. And I think that really like carried the game for me. And I had like really like fond memories of the first playthrough, and it like really got me in the series. And that inspired me to buy X, and like instantly when it came out, I loved X also. Like I played that for like almost every day for a good 3 to 4 months maybe, and then I eventually just like moved on from it because there didn't feel like there was much left to do in the game because there wasn't like any like additional content coming out.
I mean, there's only so much that you can do after hour 999, right?
I actually don't even think I
There
ever
is
reached that
actually
many.
a lot you can do.
There is,
In
but
that
I
time
did
period?
not do it at the time.
Yeah, you just have to wonder about the incentives, or even realize that the thing that you could do was even there in the first place. That's the beauty of the internet, actually. And I feel like that, there's just us three guys here. For a lot of us, in terms of the content that we make or the stuff that we discuss, I feel like for the average person that would either be listening to the podcast or just playing the game in general, they would maybe see like approximately 60 to 80 hours of gameplay, and then they just be done with it. But then because of YouTube and how they've shown, or how we've been able to show in our own unique ways, different avenues for more play times, we can easily double that, which I thought was so fascinating about most RPGs, especially on the YouTube scene.
Oh, and not even just double in a lot of ways. I think there's actually a lot of things you can do with X if you don't like instantly shelve the game after something that happens that you don't like within the game.
Oh yeah, honestly, like I just started X today, and my goodness, it's overwhelming with all the stuff that they give you. Um, this is actually I liken it to like a single player MMO, but with less of the social interaction and more of the content, which is just insane.
That's almost exactly how I would describe X2. It's like a single player. It's like an MMO, but like everyone's on their own server because they've got like this multiplayer aspect to it as well.
Yeah, it really does, doesn't it? It's really really cool. And
Sad there's not a whole lot to the multiplayer aspect of it.
oh man, don't tell me that now. I just started.
There's only like a couple missions you can do with other people. It's not as fleshed out as I would like it to be, but it's still
As a lot of people would, yeah.
Yeah.
I've heard a lot of people say they want a Xenoblade MMO, and my gosh, I don't know if I can handle that.
Yeah. I think I would spend way too much time doing something like that if that actually happened.
Please, we have lives.
And so yeah, I really enjoyed 1 and X from the time they came out. And
Yeah.
funnily enough, even though it's now like my favorite game, I originally was not at all hyped for Xenoblade 2. Like
Really?
I had to talk them into getting it. It was my
Wow.
fault.
No, that's actually surprising, because I know that all the people that I knew, whether it's in my friend circle or my Discord, they're all super into Xenoblade Chronicles 1 or X. It was one or the other I found
Yeah.
most of the time. But then when Xenoblade Chronicles 2 was announced, not even released, when it was announced, everyone was super into it because it's just more of that thing that they love so much. So I'm surprised about that.
Well, the thing I saw the initial art style and it was like such a change for me. I like it now, but like at the time,
That's true, actually. Yeah, I
at the
noticed that
time,
too.
it just like bothered me. I was like, wow, they're really making this series really anime, and even though it was anime the entire time, but you know.
Oh yeah, honestly, like anyone that says otherwise is really kidding themselves. It's funny actually. I remember talking to someone that said that it looked too generic, but yeah, no offense to people that love Xenoblade Chronicles 1, but if you really take it apart, you'll actually notice that there's a lot of cliches about it. It's just that it executed the cliches so uniquely, and that's what prevented it from being 100% cliche.
Yeah.
Only like 80% cliche, but that's something that I guess we'll talk about for another time.
Yeah.
Don't want to ruffle anyone's feathers this early on in the podcast.
Oh, no worries,
jeez.
don't worry. It's fine.
But granted, though, the people that do play Xenoblade, they tend to be a lot less. And from my experience, by the way, I say this coming from a lot of other different communities, particularly of Nintendo IPs. The people at Xenoblade, obviously, they do have their differences and their grievances from each of the 3 games, just for the concept of Xenoblade. They've actually been pretty good-natured about it, and that's what pleasantly surprised me. Might be also because we're relatively small, but even then, though, like people are pretty agreeable when it comes to certain points, which I enjoy.
Yeah.
It's mostly because it's like a community that has sort of grown itself, especially with like Operation Rainfall and stuff like that. And
Operation Rainfall.
X bringing the games together. And 2, like even when they have like DLC with like Elma or Shulk and
Yeah, honestly, that just blew me away. I think that was the thing that I loved the most about 2. Like, I love 2. I'd say that out of the 3 games, well, no, let's just call it out of the 2 games, because I haven't played enough X to know if I like it or not. Love it right now, but who knows, that might change tomorrow. Pull too many things on accidents. What's going to happen is, so now the reason why I love 2 so much, more than anything, is just the sheer amount of content and how each of the like little pieces of content have just contributed so much to my enjoyment of the games. Like you mentioned earlier, with the DLCs, probably the best DLC model I've ever seen in basically any game in recent memory. It's just, wow, it was so good. Really good
when you have
DLCs.
DLC that is basically another game.
Oh,
sort of
yeah.
says a physical
Honestly,
DLC.
Absolutely, and honestly, some of the blades alone, in my mind. Obviously, we have like our differences regarding the strengths of Corvin, and I do agree with you guys on that one, because you guys definitely know this game a lot better in terms of mechanics better than I do. But just the use of Corvin, I just find so enjoyable, because again, each of the different blades, even just the ones in the base game, so different from each other, but they're familiar enough to be very comfortable upon using the first time. And it's just a blast. I love it. I love it so much.
Yeah. And just a quick note about Corvin is that even though he's not like the greatest on normal mode, he's actually like the almost the most important blade probably on Bringer of Chaos. He has like so many like
Probably.
uses with his evasion art and just his like he can set up like the most powerful like damage over time that doesn't require a fusion combo with his level 2 special. And that's
Oh
like
yeah.
really useful as well. Like he's a really solid all around blade. I just don't think he's not like extremely broken in any aspect. He's just really good at everything. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, he's that amazing jack of all trades that can't get hit by most of the time. It's just nice.
Yeah.
Love his design too. His design also really stands out to me.
And as far as
He uses swimsuit, though.
Xenoblade 2, like I said, I was not initially hyped for the game like at all. I was like
Yes,
super
yes.
excited for like Mario Odyssey, and like Xenoblade was like an afterthought to me. Like,
Oh
cause
yeah.
I wasn't like a fan of like the art style, and I was like, I wanted more X. I wanted X2. I didn't want this, you know. And it was just kind of like
Mhm.
a bad mindset to be in, and I wasn't even like giving the game a chance.
I think
ended
it's a
up
very understandable though. I find that it's very understandable because that's kind of if you're staring at something the entire time, obviously art style is going to be a key determining factor. No one's forcing you to get used to something, and also you shouldn't be forced to get used to something. But obviously they did have their reasons, and personally for me, having loved Xenoblade 2, I would like to see that shift back to realism in the future. But I guess we'll talk about that
Right.
later.
I think the realism will come back if they make another sequel to X, but
Yeah, oh please.
and as far as 2, I did buy the game when it came out, but I only played it for
Uh-huh.
a little bit because I had finals I think like the next week. So I
Oh,
got
okay.
like I played like through like the first 2 chapters. I was like thoroughly still unimpressed with the game, and it didn't take me
It
till like after finals until I got to like the end of chapter 3, and that's when the game like actually started picking up to me. And this is
honestly, it takes about that long to really pick up. I found, even in my experience.
Yeah, and kind of once I this is probably half the reason I really like Mithra, but she kind of like I don't know saved the game. I wouldn't use that wording, but like she's one of the like main reasons I started enjoying the game because I found her like so much fun to use compared to like all the other blades I had because of her skill tree with the
Yeah.
foresight and lightspeed flurry and stuff. And
Oh yeah, there's like clearly whenever they make a main character in any JRPG, they got to make sure that they're solid. Otherwise, like it's just gonna break the experience. And yeah, I could see that. Totally see that.
so I enjoyed the rest of the game. I think the story really picked up after chapter 4. I think the first 4 chapters were a little weak, but once like we got into the end all and like learning the motives for Torna, I think that's when the story really picked up and became like
Yeah.
kind of on par with like the first game for me. And once I started playing more, I started to like it better. But before all the DLC came in and like challenge mode and stuff, there wasn't a ton of things to do in the end game. So I would just be like
No.
experimenting with blades and like doing stuff. I was like, but these super bosses are like so easy. We only have normal mode, and there wasn't a ton of things to do, and I still enjoyed it, but like it wasn't like something that I could like play like all the time. And once challenge mode came out, I think that like all changed because it gave us like this just consistent like set of missions to like keep trying to improve at. And I still play that like constantly to this day. I probably like 60 to 70% of my playtime of 2 is just challenge mode stuff.
Oh, yeah,
And
honestly, challenge mode and the difficulty sliders are probably just the
yes,
most genius thing I could ever thought of because like it's such a simple concept, but it's one that they could have totally easily screwed up. I remember actually back before the new difficulties came out, a lot of us were speculating what exactly would be happening. And by the way, just so you guys know, like for the purposes of clarity and transparency, in my Discord server and most of the people that I talk to, we actually didn't really know much about data mines.
yeah,
Usually, as a general rule of thumb, I don't really look into data mines that much.
right.
Not out of some misguided sense of morality or anything like that. Don't get me wrong. It's more or less like, yeah, I like to keep the surprise to myself for these kinds of things. But I remember thinking to myself, there's a lot about this game. Having played this game for hundreds of hours at this point, or at that point, I realized that how would you make this game harder without making it awful? Like just pure BS, get one shot out of nowhere. Like how would you do that exactly? And they somehow pulled it off, and this is like, okay, well, looking forward to the next
Well,
game then.
well, to be fair, before like Elma and Overdrive and Corvin came out, Bringer of Chaos, I did think, especially in challenge mode, was kind of a really dumb difficulty because of
It
the
really was, wasn't it?
existence of like Rage
Just,
Strike.
rage.
Yeah, and
Oh
I
no.
think Corvin giving you like that free evasion and Overdrive making you able to like actually combo super bosses like effectively. That really helped make Bringer of Chaos not just like a cancer difficulty where you had to control PewDiePie to like have a chance of doing anything.
Exactly. It's just that it was one of those things where, like, the overall balancing, like, obviously, it was just they didn't want to sell us short, and that's why I like the custom difficulty so much too. Is that they give us the option? Okay, do you want this part to be harder, or do you not? Do you want to have chain attacks, or do you want to nerf the chain attacks? It wasn't just a matter of I'll nerf this but buff this. It's just that I'll leave it up to you and see what you like. And Bringer of Chaos, let's just toss this all in a salad and let's see how bad you hate it.
Yeah, that's basically what they did. And one of the things I did appreciate about Bring Your Chaos is that like a lot of the best strategies before that were like, hey, let's get these really fast chain attacks and just chain attack kill everything as fast as we possibly can. And that's a little, and even if I like the gameplay a lot, that's a little bit boring since we have like so many other like aspects of the combat system we can use. So I did so I did appreciate the fact that I could actually use other strategies on Bringer of Chaos that like were actually a lot cooler than the chain attack strategies.
That's kind of the thing too for me. Like making the videos back when I would make build videos before the DLCs came out. After a while, it was just me trying to say, okay, you know what? Let's just use different aux cores and make the video based around this because I know that it's going to drive me insane if every battle that I did with every single blade focusing on each of their strengths just boils down to me pressing plus eventually. And I know it's going to drive my audience insane too. I've had some people tell me that like I don't like the fact that most of your things just end with a chain attack, and I was like, you know what? I agree. Let's try to figure something out we can do. And I think that's really the shining point about Xenoblade with me is that, or at least Xenoblade 2 with me, is that there's so many options to choose from, and you never really have to feel like you're selling yourself completely short compared to, like, you know, if you're playing Xenoblade 1. I hate always making the comparisons, but I love to make
that's
the comparisons.
That's a good comparison,
honestly.
honestly.
Xenoblade 1, like, it's just, if I'm not using agility and I'm relatively the boss's weapon, I'm selling myself short, or if I'm not topple locking or building up my party so that I'm constantly topple locking, I feel like I'm playing half a game at that point, because clearly there is the alternative that's so much better. Whereas with Xenoblade, every single blade has different properties and passives and abilities that each of them feel unique, despite the fact they all share movesets with each other, and I think that's like the coolest thing.
Blades,
I agree with that. Even like lower tiered blades like Godfrey or other ones, they still have their own identity. Yeah, even Purim, they still have their own identity, even though they're not considered.
Yeah, and I think people complain about like lack of customization into it. Blades basically are the customization, just because they're so vastly different from each other. And I think what you'll like about X is that there's a lot of customization and options in that game as well. That Xander
there was so much character customization.
A lot of the customization complaints in 2 is not that it doesn't have a lot of customization, but more so X had more.
I guess that's a fair point too. Like, yeah, I would totally see that. Granted, X is just this massive. I don't even know what to make of this game.
Well, I guess you'll find out. But
I can't wait.
A lot you can do, at least individually. Maybe not for a party setting as much, because like lack of chain attacks and stuff like that. But it's still very customizable.
Yeah, well, we'll have to look forward to that one. I know I will.
Party members are not as useful in X as they are in the other games, for sure.
All right, so I get to fulfill my dream of solo Cassandra.
Oh,
I made my character look like Cassandra.
Soloing is one of the most viable strategies in X, actually, because you don't have to take your party members to like take away like the extra overdrive bonus for like party or something like that, right, Xander? Is that right?
No, you get bonuses if your party members are in overdrive. You can like use them to target appendage.
I thought your entire party, if you were the only person in your party, you counted as your entire party, and that was like one of the main reasons that soloing was like really good.
No, it's based on how many people are in it.
Oh, never mind.
I might have to DM a couple of you guys after this about stuff like that. Then we'll get there. A lot of people were very open to sharing stuff with me, so I can't wait so much.
If it's about X, you could DM me. But
all right.
Yeah, Xander knows more about X than I do. He's better at it than me.
Perfect.
So I guess we kind of already mentioned it. So why did you like specifically start making videos for Xenoblade 2?
Oh yeah, okay, so the thing is, for me, obviously I started back with the Breath of the Wild, beginning of 2017, and my whole goal at that point, for those guys that aren't aware, I used to be part of journalism. I want to be a games journalist, actually, but a lot of stuff happened that prevented me from doing very much with it, mostly just because time is always an issue when it comes to jobs like that. So I kept the skill set and I kept the resources, but I didn't keep the career path. But the thing is, though, is that when Breath of the Wild came out, this is just a very open game where there's just so much that you don't know, and naturally people will come to the internet. So I recorded a couple of videos for like little strategies, mostly just me showing off about killing enemies, only to find out literally 5 minutes after beating those enemies that there's much easier ways of doing it. And it got to me thinking that like a lot of people have challenges with these kinds of games, and people like me that clearly have more time to spend on these kinds of games would be like, there's always an easier way of doing things. That's just how people are. People all think differently. Even just, again, for the three of us that are here, each of us have different approaches and think differently when it comes to fighting or when it comes to approaching a game. So that was what it was for me when it came to Xenoblade, is that it was I wasn't really thinking of making many videos about it initially, but when I saw just the sheer amount of blades, I realized that there's actually so much to unpack here, and I wanted to present each of the information and each of the different blades in their own way, which is why I made the Blade Showcase video series. It wasn't necessarily that I wanted to make every blade OP, as your kind of MO is going to be, NL, but for me, though, it was more like, okay, so each blade has talents and abilities that make them shine, and by virtue of the game, and this is probably my favorite part about 2, or my other favorite part about 2, the randomness of obtaining blades, or most of the blades. A lot of people are going to draw a blade, and obviously this is a very exciting time for them. It's like drawing a rare in a gacha game, but they want to know one thing: is this worth? And my thing is going to be, it's worth in its own way, and let me explain to you why this thing is worth, and then you're going to get through the game a lot more smoother with a little bit more confidence, because that's something that my video hopefully would be able to do for you. And I've seen that reflected. A lot of people tell me that they enjoyed Xenoblade 2 a lot more as a result of me telling them that, yeah, this blade that you have, some people might say that it sucks. Maybe it does, but I tend to put a more positive spin on things because, like it or not, this is the thing that you're going to be stuck with for now, and that's kind of what I want to show you guys. And then as things went on, I want to share more strategies. I managed to show more builds. Builds are just the thing that I really enjoy in basically any game. If a game doesn't let me have variety, I'm going to enjoy the game. I can still enjoy it, but the longevity of that enjoyment will kind of dwindle down as the years pass, or as the months pass.
You're
even
gonna enjoy X a lot, then.
exactly. No. That's why I'm so overwhelmed, because I know the onset of addiction when I see it, and that we're dangerously close. We're flirting with the line right now. Oh boy. But yeah,
sorry.
Yeah.
I actually remember like some of your videos, like on some of the blades, and I guess this was my primitive way of thinking at the time. I was like, why is he making videos for these blades? They suck, you know. And I guess that's just me like thinking like with my optimal brain and stuff like that. And I guess I didn't
and there's nothing
see
wrong
kind
with
of
that,
what you
too.
were doing. But
And there's nothing really wrong with having that mindset too, because obviously some blades are more worth the time of investing in. But for me, like, I've always looked at it from the perspective of that inefficient, suboptimal kind of Pokemon thing, and this was a big one for me. I remember coming around to making the Pyra video, and I remember the moment I sat down to make that video, I was like, holy crap, how do I even make a video about this? Because everyone has this. What can I do to actually make this thing? And I realized that it's just that it's more about having a playstyle that makes you enjoy using a blade. So if you like this blade a lot, I recommend you guys to use that one rather than only seek out the most powerful ones. Because, you know, it's cool that you can beat the game fast, but it's even more fun to beat a game with a blade that you like. That's why I'm Mr. Cassandra, essentially, is that I love Cassandra so much. Such a fun blade to use. Might not be the best, but I can just make her work, and I can even use like the really stupid builds on her and get away with it because, you know, who's going to stop me? I won't necessarily use her on, you know, Bringer of Chaos, but I still like to have her around for the ride, and I think that's the most important thing to me.
yes.
Hey man, don't let your dreams be dreams.
Oh yeah,
And I think one of the things that I always get the most enjoyment out of like doing things like fast, I guess, and like doing like challenging myself to like either beat things fast or like put myself in like a restricted situation where I have only like one blade or something. So I think that kind of that influences my enjoyment of the game in a way that makes me like focus on different things. Interesting thing about when I started my channel, you notice like the first like 3 months of videos on my channel, they're all like basically like terrible because I didn't know how to edit videos. I didn't know how to do anything. I basically just made a bunch of like dumb videos about things that
Well, you can only
I
ever
just,
be your own worst critic, right? I mean,
I know, but
for
like the
some,
videos now are like much better quality and just like much better like formatted and everything. And like my first,
yeah,
my
that signifies your
original
growth as a
videos,
content creator.
I actually had no plans of like actually becoming like a big YouTube. Like I literally just bought like a capture card to show off me doing cool things in the game. I didn't have any intention of like making guides initially or anything. I was just like, hey, watch me solo this super boss with one blade right here. This game's easy, you know.
Oh yeah.
And I eventually like people were like asking me like, hey, why don't you make a guide for this? I was like, okay, sure. And even though that first initial Mithra guide I made, it was not very good, and I kind of like changed it like a year later with the evasion build instead of the crit heal build. But
Yeah, crit heal was the most popular meme for a while. I actually, to this day, I'm pretty sure these are your people, always commenting on my videos saying crit heal sucks. You
well,
always get
Yeah.
it's okay. I didn't. It does not suck. Like, here's the thing. It's still useful in a lot of situations. But here's
Yeah,
the
yeah.
it's not good specifically for Mithra just because there's an evasion-based strategy you can use. It actually gives her more DPS, and you also don't even have to worry
Exactly.
about getting hit, and it works better against a larger number.
Is that why you like Cassandra?
Oh
Sorry,
well,
my mic came unplugged. That was really weird. Sorry.
yeah, no problem. No, for me, my love for Cassandra is almost purely the concept. It's just, yeah, honestly, that's kind of my thing too. Is that like I don't think she's like at all. Like, I mean, she's a dark blade first of all, and there's a million good dark blades out there. Thinking about
There's
Elma
not
right
true.
now. Okay, fine.
There's
There
like
is.
two.
Okay, fine. There is two, but honestly, a lot of
There's
people would prefer to use those ones anyway.
Yeah,
Um,
Elma and Telos are both really good. Mikhail's decent, and that's probably about it for dark blades.
Well, okay. Well, granted, considering the amounts of dark blades available in general, but yeah, honestly, I just part of the reason why I like it is just the concepts. I really enjoy the design of how she's supposed to represent sort of like bad luck, curses, hexes, burials,
Yeah.
mummification, and like these are all stuff that I love to pick up on. And it was just really, really cool to see that like she kind of contrasts to it. You'll actually find that. Well, anyways, just I love the contrast of ultra cute also meets ultra awful and edgy. It's just I don't
Yeah.
know, it's something that really appeals to me, and that's what I feel about with all the different blade designs. They're not necessarily for everyone, but for some people, there's gonna be that one that really appeals to them, and it's the one that sticks with them. I think that's what Cassandra was to me.
Yeah, we even have her as an emote on our on the Xenoblade Discord, and it's like useless.
He's in that one.
Yeah, I'm sure you've seen it then.
I might have seen it a handful of times, but yeah, it's just like the whole like the whole issue of just bad luck, and then her somehow being at the center of it. I just love that. Oh man, can't get enough of that face. It's such a, also her Japanese voice and English voice are like awesome. I just love both of them. I can't choose just one.
Why not both?
The reason I only play the game in dub, and the reason why is because I hate Tora's Japanese voice. I cannot stand it. Can't stand it.
second one sounds like this, mama.
Yes, I greatly prefer his English voice, honestly.
Yeah, it's weird actually. Yeah, like I find that maybe I don't know. For some people, maybe because they started on Japanese, they might prefer that one. But I found that the English by far is just quite good in comparison to what I've seen the Japanese one, and not necessarily because I think yeah, you know what the reason why? It's just that I don't recognize any of the voices,
Yeah.
so that never took me out of it.
Right.
I think that was the big deal.
Well,
And I think
For voice acting, I would say they tried to live up to Xenoblade 1's standards of
Yeah,
really
it was
voice
just
acting.
honestly, it was just the different localization team. If they had Cup of Tea, if they had better voice direction for Al Weaver playing Rex, I swear people would like him a lot better. It's just that Adam Howden did such a good job with Shulk and with his voice direction that like it's such a glaring difference, and that's kind of what affected a lot of people when it came to the dub.
Yes, I think Shulk was really, really good, and I don't even think the Rex guy did a bad job. Maybe the first
No, I
couple
didn't think so
chapters,
either.
maybe the first couple chapters he wasn't the greatest, but like I think he really picked it up towards like the rest of the game. But I think Shulk was just like so good as a voice actor, or Adam Howden, I guess, that it really like made people want to like draw comparisons between them, and that kind of made people hate Rex more than they should have.
The thing is, though, when it comes to Adam Howden, like I said, it mostly comes down to the voice direction. I noticed that, like, when you're the protagonist of a Japanese RPG, you're gonna have a million lines to go through, so many lines, and I kind of like to draw the comparison of, like, you're at a shooting range and you have to hit a target, but instead of using a high accuracy gun, you have to use a Gatling gun because there's so many rounds that you got to do, and you're gonna nail the mark most of the time, but because by virtue of how many shots you're taking, you're gonna miss a lot too. And that's kind of what I felt with Rex, is that just because, again, the voice direction was just a little bit lower in terms of quality compared to what Cup of Tea gave us in Xenoblade Chronicles 1, obviously that would make the huge difference there.
Yeah. Sorry, I just lost my train of thought.
No, it's all right.
Just move to the next thing.
Yeah, we
that's
were.
fine.
Honestly, voice acting is something I talk about a lot during the streams.
Yes.
So I feel bad for the people that watch the replays and then say, like, you said this 5 billion times already. Move on to something else. Get over it.
Well,
I will not, by the way.
we already talked about the combat a lot, but that was like one of the main things I wanted to like touch on a bit. Like, what's your favorite like combat system in like the series, and what's like the strength and weaknesses you think of them? And,
Oh yeah, no, by far it's 2. Like, I even liked it more than Torna. Actually, that's Mr. Controversial Opinion talking. The thing about 2 that I loved so much, I guess, again, just so much variety. I was constantly looking at my party and thinking, okay, how can I make this a little bit better? How can I optimize this to fit my needs for this next battle? I didn't really have that feeling nearly as much with Xenoblade Chronicles 1. For Xenoblade Chronicles 1, I literally had a party of Shulk, Dunban, Ricky with agility, and we just steamrolled everyone, provided we were relatively the boss's level.
Yeah.
It was just... Even Lorithea, who's an ether-based boss, like, I had no problems with her whatsoever, just because, again, relatively her level, agility, and then using Ricky. I love using Ricky, by the way. I love using that guy.
Rolly.
Keep on rolling! Yeah, he was so fun. But yeah, that's the thing, though, like, one of the things, too, about 2 that I enjoyed so much, in terms of the combat, was just how, again, so many avenues and approaches. I remember you made a video about, like, the best builds to use for challenge mode, and I thought it was really cool because, like, that was like 5 strategies that you put down. And thing is, though, those were 5 strategies that you could hypothetically put down even just in the main game, or if you're playing for the first time. Well, not necessarily for the first time, but by and large, if you were to have blades of particular elements, it might work a little bit worse. Maybe because you don't have Nim, but you do have a Knuckle Claw that is an Earth Elemental. And at the same time, you know, like, obviously everyone's going to have a strong Fire Elemental, or a decent Fire Elemental in the case of Pyra, so there's that too. It's just that there was so much that you could do, and that's why I love the combat so much. My only real problem with 2's combat, and I think this is the thing that was something I was hoping that they would fix ever since I tried Xenoblade 1 before I took a break on that game, was I was hoping that there would be more, like, active dodging and avoiding attacks. I mean, like, if you're fighting against some certain bosses, like, say, Kuradil, and the guy uses Ultra Annihilation Flare, you were basically screwed unless you had, like, a chain attack ready or you had a level 4 ready. And there was no real damage mitigation. There was no way I can do it. Even with, like, the vision system, you can only rely on that for so long. And also pulling random enemies, I hate it. I get that it's been around the series forever, but I can't stand it.
Yeah.
Quick question. Have you played any, like, MMOs?
MMOs, yeah, I have played. Well, play in the, not in the strictest sense, but I played a little bit of Final Fantasy XIV. I thought it was cool that you could just walk out of the way of certain attacks, or at the very least take less damage.
I'll say that they do things like that in MMOs a lot, where you can dodge attacks.
Yeah, that's
like,
I don't even know
damage
why. World of
in
Warcraft
some
slipped my mind.
Yeah, World of Warcraft does that a
They do
lot
that too, don't they? So it's just like, get out of the puddle, get out of the fire. It's just like, all these simple things that you could do, and it won't even necessarily make you invincible because that would be so broken. Just make it so that you take like 10% of the damage that you would have if you had not paid attention. It's just that's also that's just something I want to see in the next game, hopefully. But just something that makes us feel a little bit more in control of our destiny. That's actually kind of the thing that bothered me with 1, is that, like, the whole point of the visions is to make sure that you felt like you were controlling your own destiny. But sometimes, especially there's one fight that I had a bit of trouble with, because this is before I had my agility build finished, and this guy would fire off a vision, and I would go ahead and use my vision to like prevent that or mitigate that damage. Immediately after he does that attack, he does another move that ends up wiping my team, and I'm just like, well, what do you expect me to do, game? I tried to take my destiny, tried to take it all back, and you wouldn't let me.
So,
Oh, jeez.
I think well, the system in one, it's I don't think it's as good as the other systems at all. I think it's probably definitely the weakest of the three, if you include Torna.
And in fairness, it was the first one, so can't really fault it too much for that one.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think X is just a greatly improved version of 1, and I think 2's own system's really good as well. As far as Torna, I really like Torna as well, but I do think Xeno, I think the regular Xenoblade 2 is a little bit better late game and like post game when you unlock everything. Because I think just the options, like with all the blades you have and everything, just gives it a lot more variety than like the set amount of blades you had in Torna. But I do think the system in Torna is really good if they had gave you more like options as far as blades and everything.
Yeah, well,
and
they gave you
a lot more to
options.
actually use it on, instead of just like the 5 golden enemies or whatever.
Yeah, there was not a lot of content.
That's true.
In Torna.
Yeah, that's kind of the thing too about Torna, is that there was a ceiling to how much stuff you can do, but as far as it goes, though, the ceiling, as high up as it was, there was only so much you could do. Whereas in Xenoblade Chronicles 2, Challenge Mode obviously just blew past the ceiling and then gave us a whole slew of new things to do.
Yeah.
But Torna was really nice as sort of a mix-up compared to what we were used to. It was nice to be able to build level 3 combos without thinking too much about the combinations.
Right, I do agree. That was pretty nice. But
Yeah,
I
it
love
felt like
how
a
they gave you
vacation.
less damage. You have less damage though, so they still made the actual combo strong. So I think that was
Exactly.
pretty cool.
So a bit of a mixed bag. It's just a nice, pleasant vacation, except at the end of vacation, most of your friends die.
Oh, it's some big spoilers.
I didn't
Everyone
say
dies in
who.
Torna,
I just
man.
said all of them.
Yes, everyone dies in Torna.
No, I didn't say anyone specifically.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah,
So-
it wasn't Pyro.
So, Xander,
was
why
so
don't you
sad
talk
when
about the X system, since you know it better than everyone, and why you like it so
X,
much?
well, you kind of already said, but it was like a better version of the Xenoblade 1 system. They did away with chain attacks, but they made up for it with overdrive. And that it's similar to the Xenoblade 2 overdrive with Alma. It only goes up to 100 instead of 1,000, and you can build it up with every hit.
It's a lot different. I think. I mean,
There's no
it's
way to
similar,
really
but it's
shorten
different.
down the explanation for overdrive, but you'll get it at chapter 5, I think.
Yeah,
Yeah.
looking forward to it.
And it's really broken in X. But it also makes the combat really fun. It's one of the best aspects of the system.
Yeah, what I like a lot about the combat is the customization. You can pretty much make any build you want.
Oh yeah,
Make it work
customization's
somehow.
always a high point for me.
I would say there's more customization in X than there is 2.
Mm-hmm. I
Especially
can see that.
how you can have multiple weapons on at the same time. It's like having multiple blades out at the same
Oh
time.
yeah.
And being able to control both. And to me that's really fun. And added scale combat, even though there's not a whole lot to it.
I'm
it
actually
still
looking forward to that
exists.
one a lot.
I will say ground combat goes a lot more further than scale combat.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you're a
which is
lot
fair.
you're a lot
Still there.
stronger on the ground, and skill combat's a lot slower too. The skills are really cool, but they're not the fun part of the combat system, if you ask me.
It's gotten to a point where the top X players are ranking the skills based on how fast they move to go up to enemies quicker.
Man.
And yeah, stuff like that. One thing I really liked about the X combat was the buffs and debuffs system,
Oh
which
yeah.
wasn't really present in 2 and was there sort of in 1.
Yeah, honestly, some debuffs would have been nice, but they really had to streamline the combat of 2 in order to accommodate all the other stuff that they would add.
Well, the thing is, there was still debuffs and buffs in 2. It was
Mhm.
mostly limited to enemies, though. You couldn't really
Yeah.
use any versus them, except for mobility stuff like blowdown or knockback. But
Mhm.
that doesn't really count.
Yeah, the soft CC.
Yeah. And X, unfortunately, there's no real hard enemies once you get to a certain point.
Oh,
There's
yeah?
just how fast does this enemy die this time?
Oh yeah, so yeah, well, I
And
feel like that's kind of part and parcel with most Xenoblade end games. It's not really so much okay. Now everything's a challenge. Now that you've peaked, there's just a lot of stuff below you, and it just becomes a matter of speed running everything.
yeah, so what makes up for that is like the global nemesis, and it has pretty much infinite health. Well, it's not necessarily infinite, but
Just
like
a,
it
just
takes you all day to kill
a
it.
metric buttload.
Yeah,
Basically,
like
when it spawns, it has like 2 million health bars, and
Oh wow.
the
yes,
goal of the
of
entire
them.
player base is to lower that number to 0. It hasn't happened in a long time though, by legal means, because there's not a lot of active players anymore.
Yeah, that
I
would make
mean,
sense.
one squad of players can take it out in about 8 hours. I'm not really trying that
That's
hard.
if they like have a really good builds and are like actively trying to do it like the entire time.
Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah, pretty much.
So, but yeah, that's one of the things about X that that's one of the reasons I do like 2 more is that once you get like really optimized in X, you can basically one shot everything offline, like just with like one build, like the Blossom Dance build or even the Hellfire build.
I'm really looking forward to Blossom Dance. That was probably my
It's
favorite part about Xenoblade One, other than Ricky.
it's even like in X, Blossom Dance is infamous for being like one of the most broken builds in the entire game.
So I've heard. It's funny because a good pal of mine, he is actually asking me because he knew I was going to get this game, start playing it. He asked me, what weapons are you planning on running? And I was just thinking, okay, so I asked for what the ones that were available, and I didn't do any research, but I remember asking about the longsword, and he was just like, oh, dude, longsword's broken.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh,
It is
right, let's
very
get into
broken.
this. Let's get into
Longsword,
this.
Longsword has an aura called Offensive Stance, and it gets rid of your defense, but like it makes you like 3 times stronger.
But here's
I
the thing.
like
Here's
it.
the
It's, like,
thing about
Independent.
yeah, it's an independent
Sometimes,
multiplier, and like the other thing about it is that this like the fact because of you can have like something like Ghost Walker on like a dual gun set that gives you like complete infinite evasion to everything, so you don't need
Oh,
to worry
man.
about you don't have to worry about defensive stats at all. So
That sounds
that's one of the reasons
fantastic.
that's one of the reasons offensive stats is so broken. Like your defense doesn't matter.
That's really, really nice.
Or you could just mess with the system and screw around with buffs. Like you can get an invincibility buff if like the weather comes up, and it'll only last for 2 seconds. But you can use the combat limbo, and it'll extend it for like 8 minutes.
Yeah,
And you
pretty
don't
good.
even need Ghost Walker at that point.
Oh yeah, combat limbo is another buff that dual guns has that it basically freezes all your auras and like buffs on you.
Man.
It's actually so stupid.
I know that's the thing. Like, that's kind of what I really enjoy, particularly with Japanese RPGs. Obviously, Japanese RPGs are all built to reach a certain end, and that's just get yourself to the end of the story. Maybe fight a secret boss along the way. Who knows? But when it really gets to the point where you start breaking the game, that's when I really start to enjoy it, and that's something that I like to explore when it comes to just YouTube.
Yes.
And it's something I look forward to when doing these ones too. I actually remember a bit off topic, but that was back when I was doing like some Octopath videos, and it took us like 3 days, I think, to destroy that game.
Yeah,
And,
that game's really broken with some of the later like classes, right? Something like that.
Oh yeah, the secret classes or the secret jobs. My goodness, like that's what kind of what I'm looking forward to with X is the process that little grind that you have to do to reach the peak, and that's something that I look forward to. Basically, with all these games,
One
was
thing I
looking
really
forward to
think
level
you would
2.
like about X is the side questing to unlock all the broken stuff. Like
Yeah.
Blossom Dance, it
That's the
comes from
stuff I'm
side
looking forward to
quests.
the most. Exactly. That's what I'm looking forward to, especially. And I like it when games are designed like that. They just like, okay, now we're gonna reward you for looking for something extra, and if you have the time to do it, here you go. Now you can destroy everyone.
Yes, basically every affinity mission gives you like a bonus art or something, and a lot of them are really useful. Like Celica's 2 arts. I know you haven't met her yet, but she's a party member you get, and she has really 2
Mhm.
useful arts. You get Blossom Dance from a later part of the game. That's a really good art, obviously.
It's also
Yeah.
a spoiler, but yeah.
And
No problem.
one thing about that is the thing I did enjoy about 2 a little bit more than X is that X is so broken that like once you get like really optimized, you just destroy everything, and that can make the game
Yeah.
a little bit boring. And to be fair, that was 2 for like the first like 5 or 6 months. But once they like
Yeah,
released
before
challenge
DLC.
mode and like Bring Your Chaos, I started enjoying it like a lot more than like X, just because there was like so many different like challenges, like actual challenges. I think like
Yes, new peaks to explore.
even when I'm like doing like speed records on like Bring Your Chaos or something, like they're not easy challenges that I can just like get for free. I have to like actually have like a strategy that I like come up with, and like I have to like continue theory and crafting. Like, how am I going to shave off a few seconds on this time? You know?
Yeah, and in cases like that, like luck also comes into play. Just only,
Yes,
even if
there
only
is so
slightly.
much RNG
Like,
in like every mission of challenge mode, and you just like gotta reset until your like AI gives you the RNG you need. You know?
because I remember, yeah, I remember like when I was looking through some videos, I remember looking at Smalton's stuff. He did the one with the Cloud King Ken
Yes.
rematch, and I remember watching the Bringer of Chaos one. Okay, so I looked at the party. Okay, cool. Grinded a lot for the orb because I love that thing so much, and I remember grinding a lot for all the different skills I needed to make that build work. And when I finally got to it, I got all the pieces together. I maxed everything out, and it just wouldn't let me.
Yeah.
It wouldn't let me stagger. It wouldn't let me do anything.
You have to know a little bit about
Bringer of
what you're doing
Chaos,
for a
Ken.
lot of it. Like, there's a lot of like all my missions I upload to YouTube now. Like, a lot of them, if you want to get the time I did, you're gonna have to spend hours on it. But like, you
Yeah,
can at
that's
least make a
that's
lot of the builds function and like beat the mission with what I'm doing. Like, and get like a much worse time than me without much issue. But sometimes if your like AI Tor doesn't break or something, then the enemy's just gonna one shot you, and there's not much you can do about it.
bless the AI of these games.
Yes, I actually learned the 2 days ago. 2 days ago, I
Oh yeah.
learned this about Tor's AI. So this dude, when an enemy is toppled and he swaps back to Cutie Pie, only 50% of the time is he going to launch. Only 50%. It's like the code
Yeah.
says 50% chance launch, else do this. And I'm like, really? Why is it only 50%? Why is every other driver 100% and Tor is 50%? I was like, why? This is why this dude never does what I want him to do.
It's fantastic.
And I had to reset like so much, and I finally got like the time I wanted, like literally yesterday, to finally beat the Japanese player that like beat my Ken time. I got like a 2:55 yesterday on Bring Your Chaos Ken. I haven't uploaded it yet, but I actually
Very
got the time. I
nice.
was like, "Thank you, Tori. You finally functioned properly."
Thank you for coming through at last.
Yes.
I actually didn't know that,
Yes,
but
yeah,
thanks for sharing.
Connor shared it in the speedrun server. He was like, "Here's Tor's AI. This is why you're getting frustrated at him for not launching." It's
See,
like,
that's a comfort to me. That's a comfort to me because I can only blame myself for so much.
yeah,
It's good to know that sometimes the game just doesn't pull its weight.
right. And the thing about every other driver is that when they swap, they'll pretty much always driver combo. But like Tora, he doesn't
Yeah.
want to break or like topple or like all of his blades do that kind of stuff.
He's too busy thinking about tasty sausages.
And like me and Xander thought, hey, if we just remove Boom Boom Laser, he'll launch more often. But no, that's actually the second art in the sequence. So if he doesn't use the launch, he'll use that. So it actually doesn't matter if you have it equipped or not.
See, that's basically the beauty of like this game and how its longevity has increased so much. Is because like even today, people are still looking for stuff. And yeah, you of course that's the point that you've been nailing this entire time is just the fact that like there's so many peaks that you can reach in other games, but then with Xenoblade Chronicles 2, now it's just a matter of the peaks are still there, but sometimes the peaks will grow before you realize it, i.e., another player beating your time,
Yeah.
or just in general that you even want to reach that point in your character or file progression in the first place. And that's really what made me play this game for almost 700 hours at this point. It's nuts.
Yes. And I think another aspect, I probably have about like 700 in my main file, but I've probably got way more than that if you include all the actual like speed runs I've done on different files.
Oh yeah, that's the other thing too. Yeah, it would really add up a lot.
And honestly,
I don't know my,
I enjoy the speed runs as well. Like people say like the start of the game combat is slow, but like I honestly don't see it. It feels a lot faster than like I'm replaying X, like you're starting playing X. I've been doing it on my Twitch
Yeah.
like recently, and the combat
yeah?
in that game is a lot slower at the start of the game than like two's combat is.
Yeah, honestly, it's weird because like 2 was the first Xenoblade game where I actually started to care about the combat. I played 1, but I stopped playing it after a couple of chapters because life happened.
Yeah.
But I remember playing 2 and thinking, okay, so this is pretty cool. You just slowly wait for the thing to appear. But then I started learning about step canceling, and I was like, this game feels really, really nice. And
Yes.
I just love that feeling of being able to build up quickly and then constantly fire off the arts. Like a lot of games of a similar caliber just don't really do that, and that's kind of the thing too. Early game combat could be fast, and as long as you know what balls mattered a lot less, I found, which is really nice.
Yeah, I agree.
Oh man.
So that's one of I do appreciate two's combat for giving us like an actual like challenge that's like fun to do. Like sometimes I get frustrated if like the RNGs is not going my way, but I do appreciate that there's actually like something there to like spend a decent amount of time on and have like a lot of fun with as far as like trying to optimize it. Like 'cause I do like the trying to optimize my gear and stuff too. That's part of the fun for me as well, and like seeing if my strategy I come up with is going to work or not. And that is one of the things I think X did really well. I just don't think X had a lot of strong enemies to use it on. I would love like an X with like a challenge mode itself, you know?
Yeah, exactly. That's kind of the next thing I was going to say, is that with every DLC Xenoblade Chronicles 2 had, it just kept compounding upon the content that was already there. It didn't immediately make everything obsolete as most DLCs for RPGs do. It just made it so that now you have more applications for things. With X, it never had the luxury of that kind of DLC packs. So hopefully,
no, that's not necessarily true. X did actually get DLC.
yeah, it did, but not in the sense that challenge mode.
Quests and characters, but
Yes.
it never really got anything more than.
Xander, you cut out.
It never got anything more than a few characters.
Yeah.
Exactly. And that was kind of the thing, though, is that, like, again, it didn't really do much to compound what already existed. It's just that, okay, this is the new thing, go have fun with this, what's essentially just more objectives. Whereas with this next game, it was just, we have all these challenges, and now we're going to buff everything up, and we're going to see how well you guys do, and how quickly you can do it.
I will
So
say,
to give us a timer.
I will say before challenge mode, I did like the combat of X probably a little bit more, just because there was more stuff to like actually use it on. Because like before challenge mode, the hardest thing in the game was like Ophion, who was like completely free with like any evasion setup, or like Tyranitar, who I can casually solo with like almost any blade.
It had gone to a point where I just did nothing but farm Tyranitar for my videos.
Yeah, it was kind of getting to the point. There wasn't a lot of like strong enemies in the base game at all, so I think that I'm glad they added the challenge mode.
Exactly. I remember being just absolutely shook. Actually, I remember the day one stream very, very well. Just like seeing the new Cloud Sea King Ken, and I was just like, "Oh my shot!
Yes.
Like my one-shot builds do not work."
Yes,
I hate this.
you've gone from like a 15 million HP enemy to a 50 million one. So
I know that was kind of the
normal
thing. It was so humbling and humiliating all at the same time. That was a good day one stream, as I recall.
I actually died a few
happens.
times. I actually died a few times on my day one stream as well that night because I didn't know what to expect either. So I didn't have like any like specific builds to like completely tackle it yet. So.
Yeah, and I think that was kind of what I enjoyed a lot about just Xenoblade 2 as a game in general, is that I had the benefit of like being able to talk to other people, people like you. We were able to talk about how like, oh boy, this is all new stuff. We can all see it together, and just all the content they gave us just made us want to play more.
Yes.
New Game Plus, especially, even New Game Plus, it's such a small update, relatively speaking, but man, it gave us like Eye of Shining Justice. It
Yes,
gave us
I enjoyed that. I enjoyed that so
Enel
much.
was the first one to get it. It was amazing.
I actually was.
Man.
I was legitimately, I think, the first person to get it because I had like the patch as soon as it came out, and I had already, I had farmed skill points in advance, and I was a speedrunner of the game too, so I just skipped past all the cutscenes, and I got like to the point I unlocked Zeke. I was like, okay, let's use this ability. I've never seen this before, and then I like started using it like on stream, and I was like, everyone watching was just like shocked at what was happening.
Oh yeah, it was so scary to watch. I remember people telling me during my stream about like that little discovery of yours, and it was just like, so basically this guy can hit 450,000 per hit.
Oh, even more than that.
At the speed of light.
Yeah.
At minimum, he can hit about like 450,000 at the speed of light. And then it's just like, oh, and then also the thing about that too, again, because there was so much brainstorming going around. That was actually the point where a lot of us realized that Numa was very good for crit builds. Like we didn't even realize that until some people started bringing that up. It's like, wow, this just changes everything.
Yes, 100% crit with Zeke was really strong. So.
Oh man, that was quite the time. Like, whenever a DLC packs, it's always crazy.
And even then, and challenge mode made Numa more valuable as well because you could like even in the Ken video yesterday, I used Numa because she lowers the break resistance by 50% of him, and that makes breaking him so much easier.
Oh man,
I mean it's Bringer of Chaos as well.
Yeah.
You kind of need it.
Yeah,
I know.
So I like stack Overdrive, which also reduces break resist, and you like have to stack all of that to have like a decent chance of like breaking him all the time.
It's a very satisfying climb to reach that point where your Overdrive is building up, you're getting the golden affinity lines and everything.
Yes.
So nice.
And I do remember the Zeke discovery though, and I had like a lot of fun using that for a while, and it satisfied me until challenge mode actually came out, and then we discovered it was not very good in like challenge mode because of the wave format. But,
yeah, there's only so much you could do, but man, it was cool though because that just it gave Zeke superpowers essentially, and that's just such a valuable, cool little like update / Easter egg that they gave us.
Yes, and
They
it
really
made
did
it made.
care about this game.
I honestly think that was planned like for a long time because on his skill tree he has like 50% arc cooldown reduction. But if you like look at Pandoria's like arts, they're like so ridiculously slow that he never needed that. You could like with that skill he could like cancel like dynamic spark sword
Yeah,
into itself without any like recharge on it or anything. So I was like, once
yeah.
that came out, I was like, oh, he can still infinitely cancel despite all of this other stuff, and so
That was the final part that they needed. It
yeah,
was
so
cool. Yeah,
it,
it
it
was. It
made
was always
sense.
nice.
So I think it was planned for a while because Pandora was really bad before that. She was like probably one of the worst attack blades, and then they
Oh
like
yeah,
insanely
it was
buffed
rough.
her because of that. And I think that was really cool. And
She went from D tier to S tier.
even now, she still has the strongest like single target DPS in the game for that 90 seconds. But it's just that chain attacks are better like for shorter than that for like normal mode, and like Bringer Chaos enemies have too much HP, so she's just not gonna be the most useful there,
Yeah,
unfortunately.
you couldn't do it all. Yeah, you can only be it for so long.
Right.
Oh well.
So, I guess the next part, I guess, since we've exhausted the combat of it, what do you want to see in like the future games of the series?
Well, I've already touched on it before, but yeah, again, like the whole damage mitigation thing. It's just that I like to be active, and obviously this is the game where you can fight, but you're always freely moving. We might as well do something rather than just stand in front of the enemy and then mash like dynamic spark sword. You actually
Right.
had to like think about what you're doing and where you're standing, and I find that a lot more valuable. So again, like kind of taking a nod from MMOs, which people have constantly referred to as being, X being the single player MMO, and even just the way that these games are structured kind of is likened to an MMO as well. And, like, the ability to see that, the ability to like be able to move around, that's just how I see about combat, and I think that's the thing that I feel like we would just need a lot more of. By and large, though, everything else on my wish list is just kind of fluffy. Like, I'd like to see a return of character customization. In terms of story writing, they've always done well based on what I've seen. I liked one story. I loved two story. Looking forward to seeing what happens in X. But yeah, honestly, I never have to worry about story with these guys.
X story is probably the
Alright.
weakest. I wouldn't say that just yet. But
Yeah, well, we'll see.
Well,
We'll see.
It's subjective, but
Yeah. Obviously, these two things tend to be subjective, but there's
I
there's
will
really a
say
lot
the
that I can
one
say.
objective thing is that X's story is very far off from Takahashi's original written novel, and he
Oh,
said
really?
that. So,
Man.
yeah,
But yeah, that's kind of what it is, though. Like, I don't have to worry too much about stories because I feel like they'll just follow what it is that they want to do. Especially when it comes to like themes. Themes and story writing is something that I've been thinking a lot about. Especially since I beat one for the first time back in December, and the thing that really got to me, because obviously people love to tote around how this game loves to have philosophical and religious symbolisms and themes, which is all well and good. Well, after a while, it's like, okay, we get it. Things are inevitable. People live outside of Providence. I get it. But what they did in 2 was just a nice little step up from that, in that it was a lot more subtle about how they handled it in certain ways. There's a lot that I could really say about this. I don't want to really take up too much of your time about it, but I really just enjoy them incorporating themes in every way possible and making parallels and allusions. And yeah, that's why I'm always looking forward to these stories too.
yeah. One of the things I really want to see is we already touched on it earlier, but it's like better online in like the next X game, especially at least, because
I would love to see a sequel to X.
I
Just
think
based on what I've seen
And X2.
before, I feel like it lends itself to something new.
I think like the missions that they currently have in X are really fun to do with other people. So I'd love if they'd like let us have like more options as far as like teaming up with other people and maybe like even tackling some of like the story stuff with like other people. I think that'd be really fun. And I know the thing about that is that it kind of makes you have to have a character like Cross who's like a completely intrapersonal avatar who's like not really involved in the story outside of just like being there. But
Yeah.
I still do think that there's so much potential with like a multiplayer system that I would probably be able to forgive it, you know.
Yeah,
if we could have one as like expansive as Monster Hunter.
Yeah,
I
that's the thing.
think that
I think they're trying to
that
do
would-
that with Demon X Machina, also for the Switch. They're trying to do a thing where it's just like people would get together and they'd be able to fight things, possibly by the story. It could be nice. I think it could be nice.
And focusing on more of a story aspect, I really like the dark story of Torna, like how it was like a darker atmosphere and everything. I would love to like have a full like game that kind of had that same kind of atmosphere. Maybe not with like the tragic ending, maybe a more happier ending, but still like more like just a darker themed story in a set.
Yeah, I feel like that could also just be in the books as well. Most of the funny things about when it came to playing Torna, in my mind, is that it had the benefit of being a prequel.
Right.
Actually, I think as though a prequel could be very hit or miss. Thankfully, for the most part, it was pretty hit more than miss. And yeah, like honestly, when it came to how they just conveyed that thing, like Malice was this presence looming over them, it did a lot to sort of build the characters that we already knew into what they are today, and we gain a much more
like
larger appreciation of the second game.
What were you saying, Xander?
Yeah, building on characters like Mithra and Jin.
Exactly.
Yes.
And it gave me a much bigger appreciation for both of those characters. Actually, I didn't really like, no offense, I didn't like Mithra at all.
Oh, that's fine.
I didn't like her at all because like there's just so much about her that like I just found Pyra more preferable in the sense that she was warmer and more supportive, whereas Mithra's like, I don't know why are you here then? you can leave if you want. I can keep on going.
Yeah, we're gonna have to end the podcast right here. We can't talk. I'm just kidding. Okay.
But the thing is, though, is that like I remember thinking about that, and then later as the game went by, I was like, okay, fine. You know what? I can tolerate you now that it's Chapter 7. But once Torna happened, I just had so much more of an appreciation for her because, like, she was the person that she was on the basis of her existence, essentially, and she kind of like provides a contrast for Malos, who's so down and into his own purpose, whereas Mithra's very like reluctant or indifferent to what hers is. As far as she's aware, she's just meant to be the polar opposite. She doesn't really have any meaning for that. But then she realizes as time goes by, and especially at the ending, I gain so much of an appreciation for her just because you realize there's a lot of brokenness in this character. And actually, that's part of what made me appreciate Rex a lot more as a protagonist as well, ironically. Because like he ended up being the thing that like Adam failed to be, essentially, and that was really cool to see that full circle come around.
Right.
Religious symbolism. I could talk a lot about. Well, I don't know. Maybe another time I'll talk about how there are a lot of religious parallels and allusions to Xenoblade Chronicles too. But
yes, I get all those too. I think me and Xander are both also Christians, so we appreciate those as well.
So much. There's so much about that. It was just like there's a lot of allusions to Christianity in Xenoblade 2, and it surprised me. But we'll talk about it some other time.
Xeno is always been like that. They literally have Jesus Christ in Xeno Saga. So.
Oh yeah, I heard about that. Yeah, I didn't want to believe it, but I saw that. I was like, this is brilliant.
Yeah, Xeno Saga is really good. You should play that too when you're done with X.
Oh man.
That's my recommendation. It's another Monolith series that's really good. Besides maybe the second game, but 1 and 3 are really good.
Oh yeah, man.
Alright, so the next topic is Pyra or Mithra.
Well, we just talked about it.
Yeah, we just talked about that. But anyway, my reasons were just different. It was just that I preferred the much warmer aspect to it. I just like Pyra's design overall. Like, I don't know what it is. I think part of the reason why is that, like, okay, so going back to the whole I didn't have much of an interest in this game, it's because there wasn't really much about it that made me think or make me curious about it. But then, I like to talk about this a lot. I don't want to beat a dead horse here, but when it came to the controversies around her design, I had to think because I love story writing, and whenever I write a story, things have to mean something. Even if it's small, something has to mean something. Nothing it looks the way that it does just because I want it to, because I'm horny. No, I need it to be significant. And the thing about Pyra is that I had to wonder, okay, so there's something wrong with the design here, and obviously I think the design was silly, but I don't think it was something worth getting mad over. But from the perspective of a story writer, why exactly? And we learned that, yeah, there is one of the big themes about this game. There's so many themes in Xenoblade Chronicles 2. One of the biggest ones being obviously redemption and resurrection, but the other one also being incompleteness. And we see this reflected in so many ways in the story. We see that how Pyra and her outfit is incomplete until the big plot twist happens where suddenly she is complete. And we also see that with the concept of blade eaters and flesh eaters, where they take a fragment of themselves because they wouldn't be complete without it. There's just a lot about it, really, and I just found it so cool that the writing was able to reconcile that so much. Not to mention that as a character, she's just so warm and supportive, and we just don't have enough girls like that. It makes me sad. It makes me so sad.
I think I prefer Hayes in that department a lot, but
yeah, no, Hayes would have been nice, but
Hayes is the really cute church girl, she's my favorite one, I like her a lot better than Pyra as far as that department. Anyway, yeah, I've much preferred Mithra to Pyra. I think Pyra was a lot more boring, I guess, if that makes sense.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I can see that.
She just felt really static, and I felt like her involvement in the plot outside of the Chapter 6 ending scene where she, like, saved Rex was just, like, designated more to, like, romantic moments, I guess, and, like, less important moments of the plot. I felt like Mithra was always the one active, like, during the plot important moments, like, in the conference in Indal, like, when she saved them from, Malos and Akos, and just,
Yeah,
like,
well, that's what her personality type needed to, just to be able
right.
to, go toe to toe with all these world leaders and all that stuff, which is nice.
Yeah, and like she was there at the end of Temperentia as well, like with Jin, and like she was there in Chapter 9 with Jin and Amalthus as well. And it felt like Pyra was like she was kind of involved somewhat, like during like the travels, but she wasn't there during like the important parts of the plot, I guess. And that's
I've always seen her
kinda-
as being kind of like the moral backbone. Well, maybe to a lesser extent compared to, say, like, I don't know, Poppy. But like when it comes to being the moral backbone for the entire party, though, she had that really nice thing going for, like, she's just that very supportive center. Whereas Mithra was the person that was constantly driving things to happen.
Yes, I feel like she was just static compared to Mithra, who was more dynamic, I guess, if that makes sense. And I honestly, I don't hate Pyra. I just thought she had like no impact on me as a character, and like I guess I kind of like disliked her more than I needed to because there was so many like horny people in the fan base that liked her, I guess.
Yeah. Well, yeah. If it's not Pyra, if it's not Mithra, it's probably Nia.
Yeah.
I guess.
In my experience, I don't mean this as a
Escape
slight to anyone, but Pyra fans were the worst. Like, they were actually the worst.
Yeah, it's rough because, yeah, that is basically one of the things that made it annoying for me, because I actually like the character for what she represents and what she does in the game.
Right.
But then, yeah, but when it comes to, like, the whole fan base thing, well, I tend to kind of disassociate from that stuff, generally speaking. I give myself that luxury.
I try to disassociate, but sometimes like I let my sarcastic remarks in like Discord servers go too far, and people think I'm like super obsessed with Mithra or something. I don't even think about anime characters at all, you know?
Yeah, exactly. So it's just one of those things where, like, obviously there's gonna be a lot of, like, what do they call it, intersectioning with with how people think about anime characters versus how they actually care about the characters themselves. It's different all the time. It's that's basically what it is.
There you go.
Yeah, yes. Thank you for
Xander-
that. Thank you for that,
Xander's,
I'll be Nia since
Thank you for the tier list.
All right, tell us about Nia then, Xander. Why do you like Nia?
Cat girl.
Okay.
Yeah, the Welsh accent really was a nice bonus point.
I feel like that's the entire reason
yeah.
people like Nia. They like cat girls. There you go. There's the reason.
Yeah, basically, it's cat girl.
Better fan art. There you go.
That's probably true, to be honest. There's way too much.
She honestly had the horniest design out of the three of them.
And well, eventually she did.
Eventually she had.
Yeah.
Like, oh man.
I actually like the normal driver design better than the blade design, but that's just
Yeah, it's
maybe
oh,
because
man.
it's also in Smash.
There's really a lot about that. Oh boy.
Alright.
It's honestly, the thing is that's kind of what it is. Though it all usually just comes down to that too. Like, people, they have their opinions, and obviously people have eyes. They do see things, and that is going to dictate how they feel about something. And that's kind of the funny thing about the whole Pyra and Mithra being an option that you choose. You as a player, on a much lesser extent, it's not like you pick the person that Rex ends up with, because that's not what the game's about.
Right.
What the game is about, Rex saving the world, essentially. But then when it comes to those two characters, they both represent two very different things, but they did it all in the guise of one character. Like, what we mentioned, that Mithra is always the one driving the action, whereas Pyra is always the one that you would fall back to when things became difficult.
Right.
And whenever someone faces like a more moral dilemma, like it's always different for those people, and she switches based on that scenario or what the writing needs her to do,
Yes.
which is what makes both of them so fascinating to me, anyway.
Yeah, I do
Nia
agree
is
with
Nia.
that.
Nia is like a superior Melia. I hate it when people make the comparison, but because, my goodness, Nia's miles better, and it's not even close. I'm sorry, but I love Melia.
agree.
I love Melia. I think she's a great character. I love Jenna Coleman. I love her from Doctor Who, but like, my goodness, they done that character dirty in that game. I was like, oh gosh, she just dropped off. Like, you compare her to a character like Charla, right? Charla, she has a very flat character arc. That character
Who's
that everyone
Charla?
forgot about.
What?
The character,
Who are
the
you
character that
talking
time
about?
forgot. The person who's always on cooldown.
Yeah.
Yeah, the person whose rifle is always.
I don't remember her.
But basically, this character, like, she had a character arc, might have been a forgetful one, but at least she had one. Whereas with Melia, the moment Prison Island finished, like, what's she gonna do?
Her entire character after that point was like, hey, I like Shulk, but so does Fiora, so...
Yeah, it was so upsetting. My goodness, like, say what you will about Xenoblade Chronicles 2's female designs, at least all the characters were written nicely. You compare it with Xenoblade 1, my goodness, it's either they're in love with Shulk or they're in love with Gado. It's like, come on, bro.
All three of them.
So sad.
Yeah.
So
I
sad.
actually liked Fiora more than Melia in the first game, honestly. Like,
Yeah, no, I like
I do
Fiora
as
too,
well.
but again, it's just that like she was a literal plot device after a point. I'm just like, well then, this is all
I
well
can
and
kind
dandy.
of agree about that as far as like when she came back. I do think it's kind of dumb how there's like some Melia people out there who was like she should have ended up with Shulk when like Fiora literally like gave her life to save her village and Shulk. I'm like,
Yeah.
and they've known each other since childhood. I was like, and you really think Melia, who just met him, deserves him like more than like this girl? Like
No,
seriously?
here's how you fix Melia's character. You make her Callian 2.0. That's how you make her a good character.
Yes, I love Callian. He was great.
Oh gosh, like sad. Just everything about that just made me sad.
Right.
And not even in like the good, like, oh, that's so tragic. No, like you ruined the character, writers.
As far as the characters in one in general, I think a lot of them didn't get like many moments to shine outside of like Shulk. Like I
No,
think,
no, but it
I
was
think
it was
the,
all Shulk's game.
I think the story was the was just like kind of driven like it wasn't really like driven by like the character interactions or the characters themselves. It was mostly just like this is Shulk's journey and everyone else is along for the ride.
That's
you know?
exactly what it is, though. It's literally just this is the character. Like it wasn't character driven; it was purely narrative driven, which is fine. But when you have a bunch of characters with you, you kind of wish that they could be a little bit more active within the storytelling, rather than just being Shulk's cheer squad, because that's essentially what they became towards the end of the game.
Yeah, and that's why I always like kind of. I wouldn't say get upset, but it always makes me like groan whenever someone like thinks the cast of one is better than the cast of two. And
Yeah,
it's-
no,
some-
people can have,
Like,
people are
why
entitled to
was
their
Ricky
opinions.
even
Obviously.
there?
No, Ricky is great because we need a
I mean,
dad.
he's
We need a-
funny,
we need a
but
father
he's
we need a
funny, but he
father
doesn't
figure.
have like a character really. He's just
Yeah,
there
no, that's
to,
the thing.
like, be
He
a
was the
joke.
comic relief, but he did
Yeah.
have his moments, and I think that's why I appreciated him so much. Is that for what little the script gave him, at least he had that really nice moments with talking to Dunban, who was the real father figure of the group. And it was just like they could have done more, but I guess you'd have to know the heart to hearts to
Right.
really feel that.
Yeah.
Well, I like the random forced topples, so yeah, that's why I like it.
I love that too. Honestly, that's part of the reason why I like Ricky. Actually, sometimes I'd find myself counting on those topples as I was playing as him. It was just a good time. Goodness, Ricky's so fun to play. I wish there was a blade that played just like him.
Yeah,
There's
I
the
think
driver.
I mean, yeah, Tora kind of you can control the driver combo like completely by yourself if you control him, but that's always. been
I know,
something
but like, I was
people
thinking
do.
more like to say sorry.
Yeah, I got you.
Yeah, that's what I was kind of hoping for because that was my favorite. Let's do building
Is
up
that
all the dots.
Is that the one where you like do a lot of damage and remove all the debuffs?
Yeah, you remove all the
There's
debuffs.
a very
and then for every
similar
debuff you
art
have-
to that in X, and it's like the most
Yeah.
one of the most infamous arts in X.
And
Where-
say sorry.
It's the one that I've spent most of my playtime around.
Man, it's just
You could stack so many debuffs that you crash the game. It's pretty awesome.
oh the Wii U. What a wonderful
if
console.
you stack more than like 15, it'll crash the game, right?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
wow.
there's like a secret 16th debuff that you can get that won't display, so it won't crash the game.
Legend holds that there was a disease out
Yes.
there.
Basically,
I
for every
remember I had a perfect record. I was like number one on the leaderboard with a really really good RNG hit, and then they just in Japan discovered that there was a hidden one, and so he beat my score, and eventually he got it so good that it's like unbeatable right now.
Man, that's basically what it is.
Basically,
Awesome.
it's this art that gives you 300% additional additive damage on the art every time there's another debuff on an enemy. So you basically got like 4,800 damage worth of percent damage worth of just debuff damage.
Yeah, I like that. Like, that's what I loved about Ricky so much is that I was constantly like thinking about putting the debuffs and keeping track of them in my head.
Right.
And yeah, like, we never really got that. But at least with Tora, we got the cutie pie, so at least that kind of made up for it.
I think the highest additive
Let's see
total.
if I can get a quick image.
I think the highest additive total you can get in this game is cross set on a launched enemy. You get her 500%. You give her like 3 aux cores and like accessories that give you additive, and then you get the overdrive stack to 500%. Then you get the 300% launch damage. Actually, I think Telos can get maybe because if you have cross set as support, then yeah, you can have her launch, and then Telos has her own like 800% just worth of additives on her own.
And then Patroka, just throw in Patroka.
Yeah, and then I think that only gets you to like maybe like 13 to like 1500 at most though. So this one would give you like 4000. And
yeah, that's
like,
really nice.
It was really stupid.
Oh man, like yeah. Anyways, that's again like just lends again to that variety that you have and all those options that you can choose from. That's kind of what it was with the Xenoblade cast. Actually, even though they all had different movesets, but really, I mean. I didn't feel super enthused to try out all of them. I stuck with my party, give Ricky the sleek oil for visual purposes, and we're good.
Yeah. I really enjoyed
There's an image.
That's a very nice one.
I'll make sure to show that in the podcast.
Yeah, that's a really cool one.
84 million right there. So that's a good image to show.
Yeah.
So I really enjoyed the cast of 2 a lot more than the other games. I think X had an even weaker cast than 1, but that's just because it wasn't really a story or character-centric game at all.
No, it was game-centric game.
Yes, so you'll find that out. There's a couple really like fun characters like in the side missions. Like there's a guy named HB who's really I
heard a lot about
funny.
HB.
He's
a lot of people
actually
I know are horny for that one.
He's the server picture for the big server we're in. You probably have it on your list.
I've seen it.
He's really funny. I like him a lot.
I've seen him shirtless.
He's also one of the DLC characters.
Yeah.
Man. It's just that like that was actually the kind of the funny thing about Xenoblade X. Like when I was playing it on stream, whenever they showed us Vandam was showing us the divisions and looking through all of them, and whenever they showed the leader of the divisions, the people in the chat would go nuts when their favorite showed up. I like that. I like seeing people passionate about the characters.
Yeah, I think it always showed all the characters that were part of the divisions, even if you haven't met them yet for the most part. So I did appreciate that too.
Yeah, come 5 years, I feel like that's going to happen with Xenoblade 2.
Yeah.
Like that's
think,
gonna happen.
Yeah, we'll get nostalgic for Xenoblade 2 when stuff happens.
Like nostalgic for Z, we can get nostalgic. No, that's the thing about Xenoblade 2 is that they had so many characters, but they all had something that contributed to the overall world building or the plots. Like you look at a character like Pandoria, for example. That character, obviously, really fun blade to use post DLC. But then you also look at the fact that like she starts off as the comic relief character as Zeke did, but then she also contributed more to our understanding of the Blade Eaters and the Flesh Eaters, which was just a very useful thing for us to know in terms of world building.
Right.
And then you look at a character like Bridget obviously helping to establish continuity and world building for Morardane. And then Dromark's a bit of a unique story in that most of his character arc is tied to Nia's. But, you know, with every Blade and Driver in Xenoblade Chronicles 2, they all had a dynamic that was unique. It never felt like they were copying someone else's dynamic. They all had their own thing, and that helped contribute to our understanding of how Blades and Drivers work together.
Yeah. I think overall there's not really many weak characters, I think, overall across the 2 or Torna. And I think probably after Myth, probably my personal favorite is Haze. I don't think she was an amazing character, but I really liked her a lot.
I loved using her in Torna. I feel like her talent art was my favorite.
Yeah, the one what is her talent? Oh, it's the one where she stops enemies. Yeah, that's right.
She stops time straight up, just like
that one was really good. I do remember that. That was fun.
So funny.
It's just a shame that Jin was just so much more powerful than her, so you ended up using him more often than not.
Yeah, well, I guess we're talking about favorites. Jin was definitely one of my favorites.
I like Jin, too.
The way that I felt about Jin was the way that I felt about Egil when I played 1. Although I played 2 first, but like, yeah, it's just that he was like the anti-hero that made me feel a lot more about the gravity of the situation compared to the main villain themselves. And part of what made Jin so fascinating to me is that he painted things in a much more personal light. Like he starts off as a walking, talking cliche. He's literally the katana bro with silver hair, and he stabs a kid, telling him it's nothing personal.
Nothing personal, kid, right?
Oh gosh, like everything about him was so cliche. And he's designed by the guy that created Sephiroth and Cloud Strife.
Yeah.
So like he created that one, and he was voiced by Cloud Strife in the Japanese dub. And like it was just really funny to see that this guy was like, he's just as cliche as it is. Even he has that speech in Temperantia saying like, we're all subject to this cruel reality. And I was just like, okay, cool, Mr. Edge. And then he kills one of the characters, and it was just like, well, this makes me really sad. I hate this guy now. But you learn more about this guy's backstory. It's like, oh gosh, I hate that I love you. That's
Yeah.
what
He
it was.
actually is a club.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, like there's just a lot about him that was just so well thought out, despite the fact that he was a clean. It's kind of how I felt about Metalface from the first game. Actually, Metalface, extremely two-dimensional character, but they wrote him and they used him so well that when his time in the game was done, he was a very satisfying character.
Yeah.
With Jin, he had the benefit of having Torna, and he had the benefit of just having a lot more going for him. He was just such a well thought out character. I actually liked him a lot more than most of the other characters in the game, which is surprising.
I did too. I think he was he was a really good protagonist for sure. I liked him actually more than
man.
Rex, I think, overall.
Yeah, Rex is a character that I have a lot of appreciation for, mostly because I come from this whole like area where people just adamantly hate Rex and worship Shulk.
Yeah. I like Shulk more than Rex probably, but like
Oh, yeah?
I don't think he's like some like absolutely amazing. I think he was carried a lot by Adam Halding's voice acting.
No, like, literally, if you were to look at Shulk's character, you take him apart and you make him voiced in Japanese. Like, there's not really much that makes Shulk very unique.
Yeah.
Granted, there's not much about Rex that makes him unique, but just like with Jin, they're very, very typical characters, but the way that they were used, the way that they were written and meant to represent certain concepts is what makes them so good. With Rex, obviously, there's a lot of allusions to, well, I mentioned earlier, touching upon Christianity and how there's an allusion between Rex and how his entire concept is literally dying as Rex, which is Latin for king, to bring people to Elysium, which is Latin for heaven. And it's just like, it's just this really weird thing that is so easy to overlook. But everything that he does at that point just makes him, just drives him to do more.
Right.
And that's what I liked about him the most too, is the fact that compared to Shulk, where the plot would constantly change his motives, with Rex, his motive always remained the same, but his motive was constantly challenged by the villains. But rather than be stubborn and say, I want to believe in my thing because I believe in my thing, it's more like he grows as a character and learns more reasons to pursue Elysium, and he realizes more and more that pursuing Elysium isn't to make everyone happy for the sake of making himself feel like a hero. He's making everyone happy because he believes genuinely and discovers it's the right thing to do.
Yeah.
But again,
After
I could
hearing
talk
your
so much about
explanation,
that.
I'm getting more of an appreciation for him myself just listening to you, honestly. But
Jeez.
there was times towards like after playing the game, I didn't really like Rex that much because I was probably on that bandwagon of wow, Shulk was so great. But like looking more at it objectively, like after the fact, I do think Rex was pretty like well. I think it was just part of my bias towards like not liking the game when I first started playing it. And then, like,
Yeah, that would be a huge contributing factor for a lot of people. Yeah, a lot of people that didn't like Rex, but also the people that
I
didn't.
think he just reminds me too much of like generic characters.
That's
and
what I
their
meant.
personalities and
Yeah, he has the very, very generic personality going for him. But again, it's how it was used in the context of the story, where he kind of just provides that little lighthearted thing. You also notice that when Shulk, towards the end of the game, when he fought against Zanza's disciple before entering Zanza's realm, like everyone was cheering him on, which is all well and good, but my goodness, that is like the most anime thing I could ever think of. Meanwhile, you have Rex. Rex is always quoting the Salvager's Code and cheering people on because he believes that everyone has potential. He actually helps fulfill people's dreams through his own form of motivation and his own experiences, which I thought was really cool.
Yeah,
I could go on and on about Rex, but that's not why we're here.
Yeah, well.
Oh, jeez.
Speaking of things while we're here, that's basically all the kind of things we had to talk about. So, and
Man.
we've reached like probably about an hour and 20 minutes now. So.
Oh
Yeah.
wow! See, I told you, filling time, not a
Yes.
problem.
Yeah,
This is
not
the
at all
guy
a
again.
problem. You're really good at this. Me and Xander struggled when we tried our test run at this. So.
Honestly, I'm glad that you guys had me around. I'd be more than down to do this stuff if people want to see more of it.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Enel, I
So
think you
nice.
found a co-host.
Yeah, I think so if he wants to.
honestly, like, I'm totally down to do more of this stuff. It's always fun to do stuff like this. It's fun to talk about this game because there's, again, so much content, whether it's about talking about the game, and you see this from however long we've been doing this entire podcast. There's just so much to talk about, whether it's talking about game mechanics and what works. It's about, like, different stories and how they use different symbolisms or themes in order to tell something, and using video games as the medium for conveying that. or just in the sense that maybe it's just theory crafting, as you
Yeah.
guys are so keen on doing too. There's just so much really about this game that we can still talk about it
Yeah.
years after its release, and hopefully more stuff to look forward to too.
I agree. I think there's a lot of stuff that I'm hoping to see something from E3 about the series maybe.
Oh man, yeah, I'd love that.
I don't know if it'll come this soon after tournament.
I wouldn't bet on this E3. But
No, not that. Like honestly, I'd be genuinely surprised if anything did happen like this E3 in the form of an announcement. But that's not Nintendo's
If we
style.
get anything from Monolith, it'll probably maybe the new IP. I think they've been working on that for a while, so I wouldn't be surprised if we saw that. And I trust them as a company where I would probably make content on the new game, even if it wasn't necessarily Xeno. You know.
Oh yeah, honestly, like they've done so well. Like the DLC just floored me. The model that they used compared to basically any other game with a season pass. It was so cool to see that they were able to push out content, and they clearly cared about the game that they were making. That they were able to compound what already existed, and it just makes me looking forward to what they do have. Looking forward.
That's one other
for
quick
something
thing to
new.
note here. Yeah, that's one of the things I really appreciated. When the game first came out, there were a lot of I wouldn't say there was a lot of quality of life things that weren't very good. Like pulling blades, you couldn't skip the cutscene. Like the skip travel menu was really bad. There was a lot of
the
other
game
issues
was also
with the game.
not very optimized.
Yeah.
The game was also awful.
I'm not gonna say it's awful, but
I'm kidding.
every single patch, it felt like they fixed issues and just made the game better. In addition to adding more content,
Oh,
and I think
God.
that made the game from something I
just want it to
appreciated.
be noted.
It
I
made
just
it.
want it to be noted that I am the only reason they added the Torah's ideas.
Okay, so
Because
that's
I
actually
made
a
that
really
video.
funny story. So
well, you'll have to tell me that later, or now if we have time.
okay,
for that.
we do. It's really quick. So basically,
gotcha.
it was discovered you could get idea levels by fighting enemies and killing them, right? So,
Yeah, okay.
So basically, the only way to raise idea levels we knew about before was filling out affinity charts. So it was never possible to
Yeah.
really max Torah's chart because he only had 3 blades. But once we
Yeah.
discovered we could fight a bunch of enemies to do that, Xander over here is an overachiever, and he spent 80 hours fighting the same group of enemies that was a bunch of them over and over, and he just
Yeah.
gained all the idea levels all the way and grinded them up to 10, so he could have the max damage Torah, and no one else had this. And he
That sounds
documented
amazing.
his adventure on YouTube and everywhere, and everyone knew about what he was doing. And then the next patch, Monolith added the option to just buy the idea levels for Torah, and it was the funniest thing ever.
It was
Oh
amazing.
gosh, that's really That's the thing though. Like that's the thing about Monolith that I appreciate so much is that clearly they pay attention. I mean, the
Yeah.
thing that really stuck out to me too was when I played Torna and you do the chain attacks, right? You do the chain attacks in Torna, and once it's Hugo's turn, he goes, "Don't forget me." And I'm just like, did that just happen?
Yes, I do
That's
think
so
it was.
cool.
I know why they removed it from the game initially because of the voice clip. It was really overbearing for a lot of
Yeah,
streamers.
very
and stuff,
overbearing
but,
and weird and jarring. But,
But
the fact that
it
Hugo
became
said in
such a
feedback-
meme that I'm glad they
Exactly.
added as a line with Hugo.
That was so cool of them to do that. And yeah, also just all the little references that they have for challenge mode. Just clearly the people that made this game cared about making games, and honestly that's why I'm so excited for whatever new IP they have, even if it's not Xenoblade.
I'm excited for anything they make at this point. I think they're they designed the world in Breath of the Wild, and you said you enjoyed that game a lot too. So
Oh yeah. It's
they have a really good track record.
yeah, so that's the thing, they're really hitting the ground running right now, and I want to see more. And that sounds like they're working on more, so that's what I'm looking forward to.
So
They
Well-
just opened a new studio as well.
yeah, they did do that. So there's gonna be a
So
lot
we can
of stuff
get them
in
to
the
hire me
future
for voice
that'll be really
acting.
fun.
Yeah, just, get into that.
I think you'd be really good at it. So I think you should look into that for sure.
Yeah, I'll send them my streams.
That would probably
Oh,
be a good
gosh.
idea. Well, guys,
Yeah,
I don't want to
yeah.
keep this podcast rambling on too long, so thank you guys all so
Yeah.
much for being here. Say
Yeah, no
goodbye,
problem. Thanks for
friends.
having me.
And
No problem.
so
And to you guys in the audience, good night and good luck.
please subscribe to Enel's channel. He's
Or don't. I mean, you don't have to, but I
Yeah.
will hold it against you.
you really should because he's he makes a lot of really good content as well. He's not been very active recently, but I'm sure he will be soon when a game comes out. that
I
he's
am
interested
streaming
in.
Xenoblade Chronicles X,
He is
so if you
doing
guys are
that,
watching this around the
so.
time, then follow me every Thursday, 9 a.m. EST. Real boomer hours. It'll be great.
Yeah, I'm working during that time, so I
I
can't
know.
watch.
I
So
know,
I
it's
am
great.
off during that time, so I will definitely.
If you're from Germany, then
I'll
you'll know
try
where
to
to
do
find me.
your stuff. It'll be awesome.
So.
Oh, excellent. I could use your help, Xander. Thank you very
So
much.
you can subscribe to Xander too. He doesn't have many subscribers, and he has a channel Where
Oh
he
yeah,
uploads,
absolutely.
Where he uploads occasionally.
Just join the Discord.
Yeah, join the Discord too, and you can talk to all of us. We have a very active Discord server that we're all in. So
Alrighty.
follow us on Twitter too. I'll link that. Please follow us on Twitter. We don't have many followers.
I mean, like I know I do, but like.
Hey, I mean, I have like 500 and something. You have like 700 and something. We can
I
have
don't
more.
even
We can
have
have
an
more.
active Twitter.
Oh, you have a Twitter though. You have like 20 followers though. You don't even use it.
Yeah, but
Anyway. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
but those are
about
20
it.
real people.
All right, let's. I'm about done chilling ourselves. Subscribe to us, follow us on Twitch, Twitter, YouTube, whatever, everything. You know what guys know to do. I'll put all the links in the description. Thanks for listening. Hope you guys enjoyed. Leave any feedbacks in the comment, and let me know if you'd like to see more of this. Have a good day.
Yeah, back to the grind, children. Back to the grind.